Hello everyone, Deviance Shadow Prophecy here, back at you with another Deviance Daily Discussion. Today's topic will be on the new Sentinel released for the Royal Paladin clan, as well as what I think that card will be able to do, as well as implications it might have for other clans in the future. So, first of all, the card, Divine Fountain Maiden Lien. Lien's been hitting the gym while she's been away. This girl. Whew. Alright, so Sentinel. Continuous ability, obviously. We all know what Sentinels are by now. So, Auto. Soul Blast 1, which is important. When this unit is placed on guard circle from your hand, you can pay the cost. And if you do, choose a grade 3 unit with Alfred or Blaster in its name that's being attacked, and that unit cannot be hit until the end of battle. So, first of all, this is a perfect card that does not require you to discard a card from your hand, which is phenomenal. That effect in of itself is fantastic. It's a good direction to see that they are going, and they are thinking, what can we improve on next? What are we going to do? And things like that. So, Soul Blast 1 isn't a big issue for a lot of clans. I know that especially for a Blaster deck, because of the introduction of the Blaster engine and things like that, Soul isn't a big issue in the deck. And if it is a big issue, then you can just take your G-Zone around it so that you're not super reliant on Soul. So you take out like Myriad, and instead run like Legit Sword, Religious Soul Saver, things like that don't actually require you to have a whole lot of things in your soul when you're trying to Soul Blast and things like that. You can also, you always run Margle unless you're running 12 crit, which is an option that you can have in a Royal Paladin deck. But essentially that card, if you just need a little bit extra soul, you can always put it in there to get 3k to another unit, which is fantastic as well. So, first reactions to this card, I think it's really good. As I said, I have been testing out a Blaster deck at the moment, and I will be testing it again with this new card that has been released. The only issue I can see is that the Alfred Blaster, it's just normal Blaster deck is quite Counterblast heavy. So it does use a lot of Counterblast, and that's another reason that I think the Unflip Perfect Guards may find a home in that deck as opposed to Lien. However, Lien does not specify that it is your Vanguard that it's being attacked. It just has to be a grade 3 Alfred or Blaster, meaning you can have a Rearguard Blaster Blade Exceed or a Rearguard Alfred for some reason, and you can actually protect it with this Lien for the cost of a Soul Blast 1, which is very different compared to a lot of the Perfect Guards now that actually are, if you are using an Unflipped Perfect Guard, you can't use them to stop an attack on your rearguard, which I know isn't a big issue, but sometimes you want to keep a rearguard around and you don't want to have to waste 20k when you can just drop a perfect guard and be fine with dropping, say, a perfect guard and 5k from your hand, as opposed to 20k. Especially in a Royal Paladin deck where your rearguards are so important as they set up a lot of your plays, etc., etc. I think it's really a really interesting and really new thing that we will see in the game, and I think hopefully that we get a perfect guard like this for every clan, just because I can see a lot of clans benefiting from this type of effect from their perfect guard, especially those decks that don't have the ability to naturally generate a hand advantage, such as like Angel Feather. They essentially run purely off rescue at the moment, and a lot of them don't. So you'll either run the rescue perfect guard in them or the old perfect guards, depending on what you're trying to do with the deck. For instance, I run the old perfect guards in my deck, but my Angel Feather deck's a little bit out of date and needs to be updated a little bit further with the newer stuff that they've gotten. But anyway, a lot of people do run the rescue perfect guard or the old ones. You don't really see an unflipped perfect guard in Angel Feather because they don't really need the help with unflipping. You do that enough with rescue anyway, especially if you're playing the no seal build. Counterblasting is non-existent in that deck at all. But yeah, so OTT is another deck that would be fantastic because they're able to maintain that massive hand advantage that they naturally get by playing the hand, meaning they have more access to their Oracle skill, as well as if you're playing, say, Tsukiyomi or Amaterasu. Both of those decks actually rely on building a lot of soul. Tsukiyomi actually naturally builds soul off the ride chain, as well as Amaterasu lets you soul charge and check the top card every single main phase, and that's phenomenal, so you'll always have soul to use with this card. Essentially, it's interesting in even a Legion deck. If you re-ride over your Legion grade 3, you essentially net 2 soul, and this is another way that you can soul blast the Legion cards out of your soul into your drop zone to be able to Legion them back to essentially Legion loop if you get a chance to do that, which is another interesting aspect of this card. So it could see a place in Draconic Overlord the Cross decks. Granted, that deck does need help when it comes to countercharge, but we've kind of got Conroe, so it depends on how many Conroes you play. You should be running 4 anyway, because it's way too good not to. This is grade 1 Conroe, not grade 0 Conroe, but you should be running that anyway, because it's really, really good in the deck. Dark Irregulars. Dark Irregulars, this isn't even a cost. It's just, oh, look, I've got 15, 16, 17 cards in my soul. I'm just going to PG you and have full access to everything in my hand, and especially now that Were Tiger Jaeger is being finally printed in English, I think we can see a lot more Dark Irregulars come out, because that essentially, that one card pushes them from bottom of tier 2 to like the top of tier 2. I'm not sure if we'll see it in... Well, we'll probably still see it in Blade Wings, as I think that is probably the better Dark Irregulars deck right now, as opposed to Sharot. But Sharot is getting a little bit of support, and Amon is also getting support in GBT 11. But definitely, if they were to get a perfect card like Lien, that'd be a very spicy card to go into that deck. Let me tell you. Like, they've already got the Succubus perfect card that moves, that you can essentially retire a dude from, and so you activate the ability in the soul, retire a dude and bring it back to your hand, I believe. I think that's the effect. So you can essentially kind of always have a PG, and you're not really feeling too bad if you do soul charge it, because you can always get it back to your hand, so you've got a little bit of defense. Gear Chronicle would probably like this a lot. You get your Heart Thumps in there, your Chronodrans, your TikToks. A lot of people aren't running Gigi anymore. It again depends on how many grade 3s you're running, so depends on how many grade 3s and grade 2s, because then you have that many tech slots for your grade 1s where you can run like 1 copy of this or 2 copies of that. So you'll definitely see 1 TikTok, normally the grade 1 that rests and lets you draw and gives power. I can't remember what it's called. Rashmir or Rafana. I think Rafana's the G guard. They all sound the same to me, but yeah, I know the one that I'm talking about. Some will run Casualty Dragons. A lot of them will run the grade 1 from the trial deck that lets you Soul Blast and discard to Time Leap it to a grade 2, which is really good once it boosts to Vanguard. So you do have ways to work around your soul in Gear Chronicle, and I think that if they were to get a perfect card like the Lien, I think that it would see play in a lot of the decks, even in a Chronofang deck, because they also have the critical triggers that move to soul. I think it'd be really, really good there. Granblue essentially could use them as well, as they have a lot of soul manipulation, but I feel that their soul is a little too valuable to be expending on a perfect card, when a lot of their soul essentially allows you to draw, and you can go off a massive Goash turn and draw like 4, 5, 6 cards, depending on how many cards you've gotten in the early game to draw off. So today I was playtesting, and I went from I essentially top decked away to Stride, had 1 other card in hand at the end of my turn. I had 9 cards in my hand. It was absolutely ridiculous off of my first Stride Goash. So I think that their soul is a little bit too important to be using as for a perfect card, when you can essentially discard whatever you want from your hand and then bring it back. I think that's probably a little better, as well as the unflip is handy in Granblue as well. In Shadow Paladins, I could see it working. It's interesting because essentially, if you were to play it in a Shadow Paladin deck, you would essentially need to be using the Diablo version of it. So you'd need to have your Kahedons and your Hollows to be able to essentially fuel your soul charging engine. Yeah, you've got Howl Owls, but they aren't always super reliable, and you kind of want them to either sacrifice now that you don't really need to now you've got Belial Owl, but that's another topic again. So you've got Ezra, which is essentially your infinite PG cycle, which may just simply be better because you always have a PG, or your Karma Collector if you are worried about not being able to unflip. That's another option that they also have. And then if they were to get one like this, one like Lien, I think it would probably be picked third out of them. Honestly, I don't think it would see a whole lot of play. It would be interesting, especially in perhaps like a Revenger deck, just because they don't use a whole lot of soul and they want to keep the cards in the hands to be able to sacrifice them. So maybe in Revengers it might be interesting, but in terms of Luard, I don't think that we would see it much at all. I don't think we would see it in Luard. I think that Ezra and Karma Collector are both really, really good in that deck. What other clans could use it? Aqua Force would be really good. They don't have a whole lot to do with their soul. Genesis, again, another clan that really, really likes to soul charge. Pale Moon would be really good because it's kind of built around soul blasting now. Granted, you've got Hoopmaster, which is really good. You've also got your Unflipper, and the new one from the Rummy Labyrinth, which I don't particularly like, but I know some players do. Essentially, soul blasting as a cost, I think would be really, really good in Pale Moon as well, just because you can essentially get rid of anything you don't particularly like in there, and especially now with Furnival, you can essentially put back anything from your soul and anything from your drop zone back into your deck, so you can kind of chuck in 2 triggers or like another perfect card that you can use, things like that. I think that'd be another really, really interesting thing to see if essentially see players adapt to this type of perfect guard being massively distributed throughout the clans. I think would be a really, really interesting way the game could progress and add another level of skill to the game, because it essentially means you've got more choices, and more choices essentially is always a good thing in terms of building a skilled player base, because essentially it now comes down to, I don't want to copy Japanese lists, even though they're topping and even though they're doing well. The Western meta is different, and it is something that needs to be recognized now, that it is slightly differing from Japan. For instance, we have a lot more Royal Paladin over here, where they have a lot more Night Rose. Like, their Night Rose is insane. Over here, not so much. We've more got Luard, Royals, Gear Chronicle, where they've got Gear Chronicle, Luard, Night Rose, and that's kind of it. Like, you'll see Angel Feather, Royal Paladin, and Dark Irregulars pop up sometime, but that's kind of it. So over here, I think that we would definitely see these types of perfect guards in a lot more decks, just due to the way that our meta is kind of constructed, really. It's just interesting to see the little differences between the two, and they aren't always super obvious. I, for one, really, really like a Bladewing deck. I've been trying to build it for a while, but Tybalt is crazy hard to get. So I am hoping to put that deck together at some stage, just because I really like the interaction of going really, really aggressive turn 1, and then having the defense of Bladewing Sullivan on the next turn. But I really think these PGs will find a really good home in especially a lot of the nations from the Dark Zone, like your Gear Chronicles, your Dark Irregulars, your Pale Moons, clans like that. I think that they will really benefit from these types of perfect guards that let you actually guard from your soul as opposed to from your hand. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how the meta adapts to these, and as well as if they are widely distributed. I really do hope so. So anyway, as always, I'd like to leave this question open to you guys. Make sure you leave a comment and a question down below and let me know what your thoughts are on these new cards, whether you've seen them, whether you've not, how you think they can interact with certain clans in the game. If you think I've hit it on the money, awesome. Let me know. If you think I'm full of myself and don't know what I'm talking about, let me know down below as well, because I think that'd be really, really interesting to get into a bit of a discussion. Anyway, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you with the next one.